Welcome back. It is the Global Morning, and this is the first discussion for the day. As a matter of fact, so many things happening in Nigeria right now. If you wake up in the morning, the first thing that comes to your mind is, as I'm going out today, I don't want to come across anything that has to do with insecurity, because you won't even know as the vehicle you're boarding from that bus stop, the next person that is entering the car, down to where you're going to. You don't even know what's going to happen next. This is the situation Nigerians found themselves right now. This is where we are. And as a matter of fact, let's go into the first discussion, which is going to be about insecurity. State of the nation, insecurity taking tolls on almost every activity right now. And of course, I have my colleague join me on this conversation today. Mr. Uyi is right here. Good morning, Uyi.
Rams, it's a pleasure being here. First off, I'll say, hope you had a great weekend.
The weekend was really great, even though it was short, as a matter of fact.
As always the case.
Yes, it was short. Now, I want to look at insecurity. Over the weekend, so many things happened. Apart from the fact that on Saturday, there was a concern in the national dailies about Anambra State, where people flee their communities. Why? Because of banditry and killing. This and I said something on Saturday during that newspaper review, and I said something like, this is happening in the community. Who are these people? Are they coming from outside to do these killings in these communities, or they are still insiders? What is the position of the traditional rulers? If it is beyond the traditional rulers, what about the youths in the community? Don't they know these persons? If it's about them, what about the number one chief security of the state, the governor, from the local government chairman even to the governor? Why do we keep having all of this? Then you move away from there. You come to talk about the north. Well, I think that one is what everybody know now. People cannot sleep in Nigeria with their two eyes closed right now because of insecurity. And it will amaze you to know that in one of the papers over the weekend, it was being said that kidnapping, banditry, and of course illegal mining is being sponsored, that people responsible are retired generals. And that statement came from the Senate. And all this culminates to form what we are calling insecurity today. So let's look at the situation of the country right now. Do you think this administration is doing so much as far as insecurity is concerned, looking at all these concerns that we have?
Oh, again, honestly, it's a pleasure to be here. If we want to talk about enough, I mean, in terms of what is actually enough, you're wondering, how do you define what is enough and what is not, right? But let's backtrack a little historically. There's an underlying reason you have every kind of occurrence, including when you talk about insecurity. For example, in contemporary history, you go back to when you had former President Olusegun Obasanjo in office between 1999 and 2007. In between that 8-year period, you would have noticed that agitation in the south, the Niger Delta region, as we call it, was rife on account of the issue around crude exploration, of course the militants doing their thing, and the whole thing having to do with resource control and all of that. But thankfully by 2007, former President, late President Yaradua, blessed memory, came into office, and of course the amnesty program started, and there was ease in that part of the country, and it would take another 2-3 years before we moved to the northeast, Borno State in particular, where Boko Haram had become a phenomenon for all the wrong reasons in the world, right? So the question is, how did we also get there? Now, let's fast forward to the last 2-3 years. What do you have is the northwest, for example, where you continue to hear bandits. At the point, the conversation was even about, should they be designated as bandits or terrorists? So we're busy over nomenclature instead of asking how many more lives do we need to lose before we sit up and roll up our sleeves to get to work in terms of fighting off all these elements of criminality. Now, to answer your question as to whether this government is doing enough or not will be a bit tricky, or if you like technical. What's the reason for that? For the everyday Nigerian, until he or she can go to bed with both eyes closed. Government is not doing anything at all, let alone enough. But would that be fair to the government? I'm not so sure, because I mean, you are a journalist. You should have a hang of how much the last 10 to 15 years we have plowed into insecurity. I mean, fighting off insecurity by way of our budgeting, for the military, for defense, and what have you. So the question is, has that made much difference? Let's not say any difference. Has that made more difference? Has there been any day, the last 1 decade in particular, you pick up the paper, you watch the news, you listen to the news, and you don't hear about bombing somewhere, about kidnap somewhere, about some unknown gunmen somewhere, and all of that? So how do we answer the question of whether the government is doing enough or not? At this point, that would be more like a debate, but I think the approach should be, what exactly are the roots, or what some persons will call the root causes of insecurity in the first instance? Now, you made an allusion to the Senate a while ago. Now, let's be very clear for the benefit of our viewers this morning, right? It was a senator from Edo State, former governor of Edo State as well, Adams Oshomole, who said that it is retired generals who are behind illegal mining. Now, you need to watch that entire clip to understand what the context is. The question should be, ordinarily for somebody who didn't see that video or understand the imports of the remark by Senator Oshomole, would be, what is the correlation between illegal mining and generals being behind it on the one hand, and the banditry or insecurity we're talking about in the Northwest on the other hand? Now, if you follow the history very keenly, you understand that there's a direct fusion beyond correlation between illegal mining in certain parts of the country, particularly, as is very obvious when you look at the news, in the northwest of the country, and the level of banditry we have come to find. I mean, I brought in a mining expert here on 2 occasions, and he has talked about all of these issues. All right. Now, what's the point? The point here is, we can't run away from the fact that you have powerful people who are behind this phenomena, whether it's illegal mining or banditry in whatever part of the country. I mean, if you don't take my word for it, you probably want to go back and listen to the Honorable Minister of Solid Mineral Resources, Dr. Dele Alake, when he stood in front of distinguished senators, one of the committees, and he told them, look, powerful Nigerians. Now, this is not Senator Oshomole saying retired generals. This is a minister saying powerful Nigerians, those were his exact words, are behind illegal mining. So that raises a preponderance of questions, one of them being, who are these powerful Nigerians? Do the defense, military, and whatever other kind of leadership understand who these people are? Do they know who they are? Are they in the shadows? Are they off our radar? Are they so slick that we can't nip them? These are the questions. We're talking about whether or not government is doing enough now. All right. You and I know it's a no-brainer to figure out that Dr. Dele Alake works with the government, or Oshomole, quote unquote, works with the government. At least the people we say are the government. So, quite frankly, the point is now whether or not we are bringing sincerity or purpose to the fight against insecurity. Just to wrap it up quickly, I was listening to a lady, a colleague from a sister station just a while ago, and she was talking about how that even when government is sincere about what they're doing, even when government means well for citizens, just for the singular fact that over time government has successfully, sadly so, established itself as an entity not to be trusted, people will always be skeptical. People will always feel, well, we can't be sure, and they will be double guessing what exactly the motivation of government is. So it's not just going to be a matter of answering the question of whether or not government is doing enough. It's going to be a question of, does government put results in front of Nigerians? When you say we are winning across all the theaters of operation, like the defense authorities will come to update us bi-monthly, what exactly are the indices? What are the indicators that show that you're winning? It's like you saying the economy is doing well. The economy has been doing well since 2021. Can we see a graph? Can we see clear indicators of how the economy is doing well? Has the life of the man who lives in Gwagwalada moved a bit further in the last 3-4 years? What has happened to the guy who lives up north, maybe a Kano State, for example? Has it become better on account of all of these rhetorics and narratives that were said? So the issue of insecurity is pivotal because it has to do directly with the lives of real people who have real problems.
All right, it has to do with the life of people who have these problems. Then let's look at the fact that there's always a finger pointing, you know, finger pointing. You hear, like Oshole spoke over the weekend, you talked about another person, you know, and that's just the ones that we know. You know, before now, there have been statements like, all right, let there be a negotiation between the federal government and these bandits. Yet, these bandits are still called unknown gunmen. You understand? And there should be a negotiation. So these are little tricky somehow for me. So now, as it is, what do you think is not being done well? We're not saying nothing is being done, but we're talking about being done well now. Okay, better than you talked about putting result first in front of Nigerians, so that at least Nigerians can know a lot is going on instead of just the paperwork that we have. Now, these people that fingers are being pointed at, why has nothing been done, or are there things being done that we don't know? Because Nigerians will want, okay, like they will do to a normal person who steals a phone on the street or who commits a crime, you know, that open disgrace, you know, with handcuff and all of that, you know, being interviewed publicly by media houses to say, why did you do this? What informed this and all of that? Why are we not seeing things like that with these people who are allegedly called sponsors?
Okay, here's the thing. I think the Nigerian state needs to be a bit more serious, Ramsey. Not just for Nigerians alone, which is of course fundamental, but for the entire world. We want to be taken seriously by the rest of the world, right? End to end. But the question is, internally, do we take ourselves seriously enough? I'll take you back again a little. A time there was in this country, a recent history under former president, immediate past president, I probably should say, Muhammadu Buhari, where you had Minister of Justice, who of course doubled as Attorney General of the country, Abubakar Malami SAN, who did tell us that about 400 alleged sponsors of terror were already being lined up for trial. Then at the point we moved the conversation a little higher by one notch, we're now asking ourselves, should they be tried in an open court or should they be tried secretly? Of course, we all know better. By 29th of May 2023, that government had left office. Of course, they say the rest is history. Now the question is, between then and now, it's almost the second year cycling out after the lifetime of that government. Who is talking about those 400 people, whether or not they are still being tried, what has happened this entire time? I'm just saying. We have seen cases of people said to be alleged sponsors of terror here and there, with evidence against them that the federal government is putting up, it's just putting up resources to take them to court, charge them, and so on and so forth. We have not heard much about that. You know, I'm relatively young, but I do remember clearly that we had the head of state in this country, late General Sani Abacha, who once said that if insurgency or any kind of crime that is of national scale, all right, persist for 24 to 48 hours, there's a pretty good chance that the government is complicit. Now, that's what the point we're making. Was saying that these governments, of course, same for the ones before it, has the burden of proving that late general wrong. Maybe we should allow that sink in for a second. What's the point in all of this? If government cannot guarantee the protection of lives and property of citizens, government can even guarantee basic things, then the question is, what then is government doing the entire time? You talk about finger pointing, buck passing, who did it, who didn't do it, no, we suspect you, no, you suspect us. Why do we have the military authority? Why do we have the defense authority? We've heard those in defense, the military, talk about whether we should use kinetic or not kinetic approach. Nigerians are not very interested in what approach you're using. Nigerians are saying, look, by all means, figure out who these people are, identify the problems, take them out where necessary, fix the situation, end of story. So in the final analysis, the point is, like you asked, what are we not doing right? Where is the broken link? And I'll take you back again a little. In recent times, we had a former chief of army staff who stood in front of an entire Senate. And he said it will take 20 years to fight off insurgency in Nigeria. I think that was 3 years ago. Now, if we were to go by that hypothesis, as they call it in research, it means we have 17 more years to win the war against insurgency. But let me shock you a little, Ramsey. Nobody, as far as I know, has come to ask him, hold on a second, sir. By what method do you come to that conclusion that it will take 20 years to win the war against insurgency in Nigeria? Again, it goes back to two things: sincerity of purpose and transparency. People have said that we are not getting what they call ROI, return on investments, on what we plow into budget for defense, for military, and what have you. But is that far-fetched? Of course it's not. Now the question is, who should we hold accountable? And that's why you see that by default, it's only natural instinct that people start with the president, whether it's President Tinubu today or the presidents before him or the ones that will come after him. Because the way Nigeria is wired is such that the president is not just the man who sits as Asa Rockvilla, is the commander-in-chief. Take note, commander-in-chief. The other commanders, but he is the chief commander of the armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, that's not just an appellation or a designation, it's a bulk of burden and demand on his shoulders.
All right. I think that is very, very explicit. But then, you made a statement. You said something while you were speaking. You talked about the fact that we had some names, should I say shortlisted also, that were supposed to be tried, either in a secret court or in an open court by the previous administration, which never saw the light of day before they left. Then that takes us to continuity in government right now, because one of the things that is lacking in Nigerian government, in governance, as far as Nigeria is concerned, is continuity.
Right.
Because each administration always comes with an agenda, forgetting about the agenda of the past administration. And that takes us to the fact that this governance we're talking about is not about the leaders, but about the people. You know, somebody started something with the people who are the fulcrum of this governance now, because they are the center of the show. As a matter of fact, anything you're doing, it's about the people. Now, even if there shouldn't, even if there is no continuity in every other area, insecurity is one area that is very, very, very crucial. Why not have a continuity in the area of insecurity? Maybe trying those people, getting, or is it that some persons are allegedly behind this insecurity of a thing that they don't want it to end? Or else, every average Nigerian will think, well, there should be a continuity, especially for this area of insecurity, people that have already been arrested. Because for me, I will feel that is a job already being done for you by the previous administration. And what's left for you is to continue with the trial, because the administration just passed. The judges didn't pass. The documents didn't pass. Whatever it is that indicted them, that made them arrested, you know, even though, if not until being tried, you can't say categorically that they are responsible. Why not continue, okay, with the prosecution of these people, especially when it has to do with insecurity, even though we know continuity is not in most of the programs of the people we have in government.
Here's the interesting thing again, Ramsey. A lot of Nigerians have thought, since it was an APC government succeeding another APC government, there will be some sort of seamless transition, there will be some fusion, there will be some carryover, so to speak, right, of policy, direction, of priorities, and what have you. Whether that is happening or not, or the extent to which it's happening, is yet to be seen. But you see, in all of this, if you make the people the centerpiece, like the centrality of the kind of leadership you're providing or the governance style you're pursuing, it will be very obvious in the things that come first. You know, the Englishman says, keep the main thing the main thing. So the question is, for our governments across board, whether it's federal, states, or local, what exactly is the main thing is very important, right? Issues around insecurity are not to be politicized. It's not about, is it PDP, is it APC, is it Labour, is it APGA, is it NPP? Those are pedestrian conversations. It should be about what should our military be doing? What should we be giving them? What amount of resources do they need? What are the critical tools they require to get the job done? And that's the reason we try as much as possible to remind the service chiefs that they must be political at every point in time. Otherwise, whatever you're doing will be tainted. And once it gets tainted by partisanship, it becomes a problem. And no matter how much of sincerity or honesty you're bringing to whatever you're doing at that leadership level, Nigerians just will have that confidence in you. So long and short of the story is, for this present administration under the leadership of President Bola Tinubu, I am sure Nigerians are saying, look, these are some deaths too many, whether it's in the southeast today or in the northwest tomorrow or northeast the day that follows. The fact of the matter is, these are Nigerian lives that you're losing. At a point in this country, Ramsey, if you remember, again under the former President Muhammadu Buhari, Nigerians were vehemently calling for the sack of service chiefs. They were saying, change the service chiefs, change the service chiefs, change. Of course, at some point, well, some people say reluctantly, the former president reviewed the situation and then they changed the service chiefs. Now, if you look back and you critically analyze that situation at that time, would you say the change of service chiefs made any difference or not? So beyond that, you are again asking yourself, what are the fundamentals we are not aligning with or we are not properly placing to get the desired outcome? We're hearing things like, we're going to flush out terrorists from Sambisa Forest, we're going to do X, Y, Z. Ironically, you keep hearing new names coming out. At a point it was just Boko Haram, later it was now bandits, later referred to as insurgents, and then after that you started hearing about ISWAP, Islamic States of West African Province, and today is Lakorawa sects and all of that. And we're now saying, no, they came from Mali, no, they came from Burkina Faso, no, they are just from neighboring Niger, blah 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 blah. But they are perpetrating a lot of mayhem, particularly around the northwestern part of the country. I mean, look at what they've done in Kebbi and Sokoto states alone, to the point that the president, again, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, asked to summon the leadership of the defense, starting with the defense minister, Mr. Bagudu, and of course his Minister of State, Metawale, to say, look, you've got to move, quote unquote, your offices to the northwest to be able to deal with these criminal elements. But the question is, the last few months since that directive was issued by the president, have we seen any significant, remarkable, measurable difference? I think these are what we should be looking at. Just yesterday, news came through of how that about 70 insurgents were taken out somewhere in the north. However, and very sadly, we lost 22 of our soldiers, all right, our gallant soldiers, to that fight, all right. So it just shows to you that clearly there's a whole lot of work to be done, and the defense and the military must be able to secure the support of not just governments but Nigerians, because like you said at the top of this conversation, the people are the ones for whom this fight is being fought, and then it means the people must also throw their weight behind the military and the defense authorities to be able to make the most of this fight.
Very important. That's well said. Let's look at, you talked about the fact that oftentimes if there is a terrorist attack, people think, are they coming from Niger? Are they coming from Chad? Are they coming from the neighboring countries? Let's look at our border lines. You know, like we heard, I think it's making round on social media. I've not confirmed it. I've not really researched it. But then there is this story making rounds on social media about some terrorists who were carrying arms in a coffin, and they were apprehended in FCT. The pictures are everywhere on social media. People are commenting, people are reacting. And that takes us to our border line and the border communities. You know, most times these things happen and you begin to ask questions. Who are those protecting the border of this country? How? Okay, certainly, these people must have passed a lot of checkpoints to get to FCT, as a matter of fact, if depending on where they are coming from. What happened to our border communities, the borders, and the people in these communities? Some of them, like it was actually investigated. Some of these people at the border communities don't even know where they belong. Sometimes these terrorists go to hide in these communities because they speak their language and they are being protected. because these people don't even know if they belong to Nigeria or they belong to Niger or these other countries. You know, so and this is not the first time we are seeing arms coming into this country from other places. We're being made to understand that the kind of arms that these terrorists use is way beyond more powerful than what our own military use. You know, so how does this arms get into the country? What's happening to our borders? Can we say at this point that the immigration service, the customs, and these other people who works at the border and at the airport, can we say at this point that they have failed Nigerians because of these infiltrations?
Okay, that's again, it's somewhat technical to discuss. I mean, you've mentioned very formidable agencies of the government, right? If you like, entities of the government. First, there's the Nigeria Immigration Service, and then, of course, there's the Nigeria Customs Service. As we all know, these are the operatives who are manning our borders, I mean, across the board. People say historically, Nigeria has always been a big brother, not just for Africa as a whole, but more so for West Africa. So we try to say, okay, can we not live in harmony? Can we not live together? Can we not cross borders, you know, back and forth and things like that? You know, somebody who did his NYC somewhere in Katsina State told me some 3 years ago, he said, while he was serving there, his service provider will show him so and so Nigeria when he's on the Nigerian side of the border. When he crosses over to Niger, it will just move to Niger instantly. I mean, he was trying to tell me the proximity, how intertwined, how fused we are as two countries, right? And that's the reason, by the way, when the issue of Niger having this kind of reach to Nigeria came up, a lot of persons were saying, hold on a second, this can't be happening because these are two brothers. So there can't be bad blood between both siblings, I mean, so to speak. But we know better now. You see, the issue of Nigeria-Niger relations, Nigeria-Burkina Faso, Nigeria-Mali, has now become a matter of life and death, unless we want to just be hypocritical about it. Now, what that means is that we now have elements coming from even beyond the West Africa sub-region into this part of the continent. I mean, some of them come from as far as Libya, from what intel experts are telling us, and they infiltrate the country. So that raises the question of how porous are Nigerian borders. I mean, I brought in a former assistant controller of immigration here on a few occasions, and we had talked about the porous nature of our borders. If we say we are shutting down the borders so we cannot bring in foreign rice, I mean, it sounds laughable, but it's not a laughing matter, quite frankly, because how do you say in 2025 you're shut down your borders because you don't want foreign goods to come in, particularly rice, which of course we understand is still being smuggled. Let's not have that conversation in the Monday morning. All right, how then is it that you are not able to explain to Nigerians the reason criminal elements will come in with arms through the same borders? I mean, you just talked about a picture or a video or something going on, being viral about some alleged criminal elements bringing arms in caskets into FCT. Yes, Global Television has not independently verified the authenticity or otherwise of that material, but how about those ones that have been verified and confirmed by even the authorities? Look at Honor Port in River State, for example, what the Navy is telling us, what the customs leadership is telling us. Or you go to Lagos itself, you go to one of the things coming through Lagos ports, look at what we're seeing, look at how they're exposing containers full of assorted rifles, including pump action rifles and all of that. Who is bringing in these items? Can't we find out? Are we just going to end at parading the items and showing to Nigerians for PR purpose, and then the matter dies a natural death? You know, Bridget Banton and Wycliffe did a song a little over 2 decades ago, and it's titled "Who Gave the Orders?" That's the title of the song. Who gives the orders for these items to come through our borders into the country? We need to find out, because we can't just stop at saying these are the items we have discovered. We have uncovered this cache of arms. But the question is, how did it get here? Who has been following through that process? Who was supposed to receive it here? Because this is not a ghost mode kind of operation. Until we find answers to these very salient questions, Ramsey, I'm afraid I will just be cycling around the same mountain for as long as you can imagine.
All right, well, that is the first discussion. We're looking at insecurity, the state of the nations, the things happening. We're talking about the things happening in the country, insecurity, sponsors, things in the media, and all of that. We're almost rounding up, but then, before I let you go, let me ask this question now. There is this issue of Nigerians need to protect themselves. And there was a time that a senator, even made a proposal that Nigerians will need to protect themselves and all of that. And a lot of people kicked against it. That, well, protecting yourself, it will result to people carrying arms. And you know what it means for Nigerians to carry arms. Having access to arms. In fact, some of these boundary issues that we're having is because arms exchanged hands allegedly during political campaigns and all of that, as people have alleged in the past. So some persons were against it. But then, looking at the security situation in the country right now, what would be your advice to the authorities? We're not saying they are not doing their job, they are doing their job, but then we feel there are some gray areas, all right? Like look at FCT, for instance. We're talking this morning, Juma and I, and we're talking about the fact that the one chance thing has reduced a little bit, in FCT, even though it's not totally out yet, which Nigerians are looking forward to, because we know the Minister of FCT is capable of doing it. Now, let's look at Nigeria, the whole Nigeria holistically now. What do you think the authorities should do, to arrest this situation of insecurity, even though you said the former president has said, if it persists beyond 48 hours, it means the guys know something about it, and somebody has made a proposal that, well, before we get rid of this thing, it's going to take 20 years, and we have just
17 years ago.
2 years out of it, 17 more years to go. Are we going to remain like this for the next 17 years? What will Nigeria become? So what can you advance so far as maybe from your own angle, what you think should be done, at least so that we can have at least Nigerians sleep with their two eyes closed, both eyes closed at least?
Interestingly, something just hit me now. Every time we talk about insecurity, Ramsey, we always turn to the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, which is of course not wrong. But then, the police are the, for want of better words, first responders in this instant case. A good thing is, just this week that passed, we were told that 10,000 young people have been recruited into the mainstream of Nigeria Police, which is good news, which is cheering. Unlike a few years ago, where we had the top hierarchy of the police having a fight, so to speak, with the Police Service Commission over who has the latitude or the mandate to recruit people into the police and all of that. We're not having that conversation. We've made progress. That's commendable for not just the police itself, but also for Nigerians. However, the question is, what is the strategy for deploying these men beyond checkpoints is very important, because we need to understand that even basic understanding of how security architecture works shows very clearly that the police are supposed to be on the front lines of anything that has to do with insecurity. These things didn't start with throwing bombs and IEDs and shooting canisters of this and canisters of that. No, they all started from a point where the police could have dealt with them, very decisively. But for some reasons, we allow these issues to escalate to the point where we're not saying the Army should come to our aid, the Air Force should come to our aid, the Navy should come to our aid. And today, we make it look like the police are irrelevant. And that is an aberration in itself. If we do not address it, this problem will not only persist, it will become further compounded. So what do? Bring the police back into the conversation. Let take their place. Let them do their job. Allow them the latitude to do their job. And allow the defense and military authorities also do their parts. And of course, Nigerians will play their role. And you understand, you get to see in practical terms, Ramsey, how this issue will be resolved in a distant time.
All right, meaning in other words, the issue of security shouldn't just be left to the military alone. The traditional rulers, the police, they are your friends. And do you know that lately I was thinking about it, and I got to know that among all the forces the police is the closest to the people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you see them in the midst of the people everywhere. You know, you see a police post in every community, you know, at different local government, different communities and all of that. I think they need to rise to the occasion, and we need to redefine the responsibility of everyone that is supposed to be part of curbing insecurity in the country. The traditional rulers too. Your place should be given to you. You should do what you are supposed to do. The individuals, you know, somebody said something some times ago, and the person was like, when it comes to insecurity, like I was telling Juma while we were starting the program this morning, I said sometimes you will be forced to board some kind of commercial vehicles, because a lot of conversations happen there, and you meet a lot of people. We're talking about fuel, the price of fuel. Do you know, we're talking in the vehicles sometime, and somebody said, well, the vigilantes, the reason why vigilantes are very successful in his own area is because the boys who perpetrate this evil are people that they know already, and they are part of the community, so they are easy to trap, you know. So that takes us to state policing, then vigilante. As a matter of fact, some person said vigilantes should be empowered, should be given weaponry and all of that. But now, as it is, we are rounding up already. Do you think vigilante and individuals also have major role to play? And how do you think the collaboration should be like? Collaboration between the people, the traditional rulers, the police, and every other person in authority that should have something to do with insecurity.
Insecurity at this point is a matter of, I mean, it has assumed a national scale. I mean, if you understand what I mean. So this is not just insecurity only, I mean, limited to the local or grassroots level, right? We already have the Civilian Joint Task Force up north, for example. I mean, yes, let's be very fair to them. These people have been doing amazingly well in their role. We understand they use things like arrows and bows and all of that. They support military and defense guys with intel, you know, from the ground level, to let them understand we suspect this, we suspect that. They just give them useful piece of information every now and then. But also know that there has been a conversation of whether or not we should allow state police idea to fly, right? At the level of the National Executive Council, the NEC, of course made up of the governors across the states and chaired by the vice president. They said all the governors, including the FCT minister, should submit their proposal and blah, 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 blah. Just during this week there was, the minister of the FCT came out and said, look, state police should not even be a conversation, that it shouldn't fly. His reason is simple, that governors will abuse it. Now that's trite to say, because it's not the first time we're hearing it. It's cliche now. We have always heard that governors will abuse it. But some persons have also asked, are the governors, past and current, not been abusing even the federal police, that's the Nigeria police? Well, like they say in the debate at primary school level, I leave that question for my opponent to answer. Finally, we must realize that whatever we do, we need everybody to come on board, but we must have structure. And don't forget that we have the ground norm, the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended. It has made provisions for many of these things. However, the Constitution is not cast in concrete. The Constitution did not see certain of these things. They don't envisage, as they say in law, many of the realities we are now grappling with as a country, as a people, and as a government. Therefore, if by virtue of sheer necessity there is need to go back for a review or for an amendment, as we say, by all means, we should go back there. But in all, the goal is simple: keep every Nigerian safe. End of story.
All right, keep Nigerians safe. That is the understanding, and everyone should protect their own territory. As a matter of fact, just like we have the military protecting the territorial integrity of the nation. Thank you very much, Uyi, for In fact, okay, or should I say it? Okay, I'll tell him this behind closed doors. I think we've had it better and stronger than how we expected it, and these informations are very vital. This is the level of conversation that you get on Global Morning, and that's going to be the end of the first conversation. Thank you very much for joining me once again. I think I feel like thanking you over and over and over again. Now the second conversation is coming up, and I will have my guests join me as we talk about something very, very important. Have you heard that some skills have been introduced into the basic education curriculum? You get to know what it is in the next conversation.